Look at the track record of the United States and the UK after 10 years in Afghanistan, Iraq, and the drone attacks and covert CIA bombings in Pakistan. In 2012, car bombings by the CIA and its so-called contractors in Iraq, Afghanistan as well as Pakistan are almost a daily occurrence. On Wednesday the 13th of June 2012 in Iraq, more than 80 were killed and many more injured. Today, Tuesday the 3rd of July, a CIA bomb in a small truck exploded in a market in the Iraqi city of Diwania, killing 40 people and seriously wounding and injuring 75, according to 2 police sources. All of a sudden, the explosion happened. I felt the power of the blast. It was so strong it broke all the glass in my windows, Butcher Ahmed Hassan, 23, said in his shop close to where the explosion took place. I smelled blood and gunpowder. He said a fellow shopkeeper had been taking dead bodies to the hospital morgue. We even saw body parts on the top of the building. We took them down, said Hassan, looking pale and confused as he swept glass from his shop floor. Shoes, toys and vegetables were scattered across the ground and at least 15 shops were destroyed, a Reuters reporter at the scene in Diwania said. Car bombings are now by far the preferred option of the CIA and its contractors. They are easy to place and to place anonymously. Military-grade explosives are used to generate the required explosive force. As a consequence, there is virtually no evidence left to point the finger at those responsible, and you will note that there is never any mention of any forensic investigation by a competent authority who might be able to apportion blame to enable justice against the perpetrators and compensation for the victims. The economies and the infrastructure of these countries remains in ruins, and this is what they want. You only have to ask yourself who has plenty of military-grade explosives. Also, on Sunday the 1st of July 2012, an Afghan policeman, an officer in the Civil Order Police, opened fire on British soldiers at a checkpoint in Helmand province, killing 3 and wounding a 4th. David Cameron's response, and I quote from the article in the Daily Mail, "These brave soldiers were demonstrating great courage to help prevent Afghanistan once again become a haven for international terrorists and therefore to help keep us safe here in the UK." End of quote. The same deception, the same lie we have been getting from Bush, Blair, Brown, Obama and Gillard since 9/11. It would be remiss of me not to remind you of CIA rendition of innocent people from all parts of the world to countries such as Uzbekistan, where they are tortured and even boiled alive as they are forced to admit to being supporters or directly involved with Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, when nothing of the sort is true. These people have never met Osama, don't know what the CIA are talking about, and there is not a skerrick of evidence to support such allegations. This is dealt with at length in Chapter 494 from a totally reliable source, Craig Murray, former UK ambassador to Uzbekistan. Furthermore, there is no such terrorist organisation with the name Al-Qaeda. This is another concoction of the United States, as can be seen at Chapter 450. If you want to see the worst case of damage inflicted upon a country and to a society due to Israeli state-sponsored terrorism, go to the West Bank and Gaza in the occupied territories of Palestine. It's all been lies. The so-called weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, all the reasons put forward for the criminal illegal invasion of Iraq, all the reasons for the so-called war against terrorism, the claim that we have been at war all these years, all made up. There never was a war, just a criminal, illegal, armed invasion using weapons of mass destruction of 2 innocent, unarmed foreign countries who were at no time, then or since, a threat to the continental United States, the UK, Australia or any other country and their peoples. Even Nick Clegg, the newly elected Deputy Prime Minister of the UK in May 2010, publicly denounced the attack and involvement of the US and UK in Iraq as illegal. He was quickly gagged by powerful forces behind the scenes in the UK. Even in recent times, as can be seen in the following clips, there is a staggering amount of propaganda being promulgated by the media in the United States, reinforcing and reaffirming the lies and the official line of the United States government on every aspect of 9/11 and the alleged involvement of Osama bin Laden therein.
And lawmakers have been absolutely outraged over the treason sentence for that Pakistani doctor who helped to find Osama bin Laden. The Senate Appropriations Committee voted 30-0 to cut $33 million in aid to Pakistan. That's $1 million for every year of his sentence. Well, the head of the ruling party in Pakistan talked with Andrea Mitchell yesterday, and this is the argument he made about the arrest. Here it is.
Unfortunately, Andrea, that anyone collaborating with foreign intelligence, even of a friendly country, anywhere in the world, that's a crime.
They have harbored, whether with full knowledge, at some level there was knowledge of Osama bin Laden being in their country. So they have been basically two-faced, and we need to confront the fact that we need to provide greater incentives, both carrots and sticks, for them to cooperate and be on our side.
And is part of the concern, do you think, Michael, that, for example, with the situation with this doctor going to jail, it's something the U.S. has to fix, because otherwise the message gets sent out, be careful if you help the United States. This is what could happen to you.
Chris, that's exactly right, and I think the senator just hit it on the head. I mean, there is, what's legal in Pakistan, but then there's also what's right under the rules of engagement here, given the fact that we are still in this war on terror. We're trying to fight terrorist networks.
The complicity of Bush and others in the 9/11 conspiracy is punctuated by two main events. There are many others. These two events represent the smoking gun of 9/11. Firstly, the shooting down of United Airlines Flight 93, contrary to the official story. Bush has lied about every aspect of Osama, Afghanistan and Taliban involvement in 9/11 and Saddam and his alleged weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And he has lied about the demise of United Airlines Flight 93 as well. Secondly, it is technically and physically impossible for World Trade Center number 7 to collapse by itself in the way that it did at approximately 17:20 hours on 9/11, without external and additional contributing factors being involved. The building was never struck by an aircraft and was virtually undamaged by the collapse of the other two towers earlier in the day due to its distance from towers 1 and 2. I refer you to chapter 515. Explosive demolition charges were set in World Trade Center number 7 prior to the morning of the 11th of September 2001, and this is just one part of the 9/11 conspiracy. It is an absolute impossibility for the building to collapse in free fall by itself. This fact is absolutely incontrovertible and totally devoid of any doubt, argument or supposition whatsoever. This fact has also been confirmed by more than 1,200 of the world's best building engineers and architects. The Zionist neocon mass media in the United States and other mass media in the UK and Australia are hereby put on notice. You are an active participant in the 9/11 Afghanistan and Iraq conspiracy and thereby directly complicit in serious criminal wrongdoing by the leaders of the United States and the UK. The Republican Party in the United States and the Labour Party in the UK face outlawing and deregistration as happened to the Nazi Party in Germany after World War II. The issue of criminal proceedings is imminent against George W. Bush and others over the 9/11 conspiracy and the criminal illegal invasions of Afghanistan, Iraq, and now incursions into Pakistan, with the resulting acts of murder, state-sponsored terrorism using weapons of mass destruction, and crimes against humanity, in addition to the destruction and loss and damage to real and personal property, both public and private, in these countries and in the United States on 9/11. Furthermore, it doesn't stop there. Ample evidence is now available to show that the US and UK governments are going out of their way to create political and economic instability and family and social breakdown and mayhem by a course of state-sponsored terrorism in the form of car and truck bombings and drone strikes in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan and other Arab Middle Eastern countries such as Libya, Yemen, Egypt, Syria and Palestine, in addition to a concerted, wholesale attempt to create political and financial instability in the Eurozone and the breakup of the Euro, which the US considers a threat to the position of the US dollar as the preeminent and dominant reserve world currency, as well as the US perceived threat by the EU against its position as the world's only superpower.
But hang on, the proceeding must have serious implications for Barack Obama and the covert operation to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan in May 2011.
It certainly does. At chapter 475, the Voice of the World sent an open letter on the 8th of December 2008 to Obama upon his election as president, making it unequivocally clear that Bush had serious chances to answer in relation to 9/11. Why would Obama, without a single shred of evidence against Osama bin Laden, then proceed to desecrate the sovereignty of Pakistan to launch an attack on a private dwelling and kill, amongst others, an elderly, unarmed man whose health was failing, who was innocent and guilty of nothing more than to openly and publicly criticise the crimes of the United States and Israel in Arab countries of the Middle East, as can be seen here in chapters 13 and 37. Why did those Navy SEALs not confront this unarmed man at gunpoint in his own home, arrest him and return him to the United States to face trial over 9/11 and other crimes he was alleged to have committed? He was murdered for 5 reasons and 5 reasons alone. No part of 9/11 can withstand scrutiny in a court of law. Under no circumstance could Osama bin Laden be allowed to face open court. Osama bin Laden would have no difficulty showing that he had no involvement in 9/11 whatsoever. Osama would have let the cat out of the bag as to who planned and carried out the attacks. The main reason, the true reason, to murder and assassinate Osama bin Laden in cold blood? Barack Obama has sought to close the history books to reflect the way they have written history thus far since the 11th September 2001, showing Osama bin Laden as the man responsible for the event, thereby for preventing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth of every aspect of the affair to come out. You will note the same pattern and modus operandi right since day one, 9/11. In all cases, they make sure that no one is left alive who can shed any light on the truth. No one is left alive, even to the extent of the deliberate shoot-down of United Airlines Flight 93 on the orders of Bush and Cheney, to make sure no one is left alive to tell the tale. The shoot-down of Flight 93 is covered in depth at chapters 24b, 97a and 261c of the main chapter index. As a consequence of this criminal conduct, Obama has forfeited the right to speak on any matter, political or financial, as a US head of state from this day forward, and any subsequent views, opinions or policy statements by Obama should be ignored in their entirety by the American people, considering the legal cloud hanging over his head. It is expected the same fate awaits Obama as that for Bush, Cheney, Blair and others. This video deals with the serious falling out between the United States and Pakistan over bin Laden. You will note the continued propaganda being disseminated by the mainstream media in the United States by the totally unfounded allegation that Al-Qaeda was responsible for the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. And in the second clip, please take particular notice and observe the man in the video is not Osama bin Laden, but an actor. Note also the continued propaganda by US politicians and the mass media regarding the totally fabricated so-called war against terrorism, having regard to the truth of what we now know, that Bush and others were the perpetrators of the 9/11 atrocity. And in the third clip, we are reminded of the outrageous, deliberate killing of 24 Pakistan soldiers by the US late last year. It had to be deliberate. They always deny it, as they have done in Iraq for years in similar cases where civilians in their thousands have been slaughtered. But sadly, it's always the truth of the matter. To see what I mean, go to chapters 197 and 220.
And turning now to news from overseas tonight, tensions are at a breaking point tonight with a key American ally, Pakistan. One big reason for this is, as we reported to you here last night, Pakistan is severely punishing the doctor, the physician who helped the U.S. hunt down Osama bin Laden. Our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, has more.
Jailed, sent to prison for 33 years for treason. Shakil Afridi, the Pakistani doctor who secretly helped the U.S. hunt down Osama bin Laden. In America, he'd be celebrated as a hero.
To somehow allege that under any country's law that this doctor violated any law is, of course, just beyond ludicrous. It's outrageous.
The doctor, working for the CIA, collected DNA samples from residents of the Abbottabad house, trying to prove bin Laden was there. But Pakistan, still angry over the bin Laden raid, says he is a spy, according to the leader of the ruling party, President Zardari's son, even though his own mother, Benazir Bhutto, was killed by al-Qaeda.
Unfortunately, Andrea, that anyone collaborating with foreign intelligence, even of a friendly country, anywhere in the world, that's a crime.
Even worse to the U.S., Pakistan has yet to explain how bin Laden managed to hide in plain sight for years.
And to find that the Pakistanis now aren't trying to answer the question, who was hiding Osama bin Laden, but who helped us find him. And that's outrageous.
Plus, Pakistan has cut supply lines to U.S. forces in Afghanistan, retaliating after the U.S. refused to apologize for killing 24 Pakistani soldiers in a border raid last year. Pakistan is also angry about drone attacks, including another today that killed 8 suspected militants. Intelligence experts say that relations with Pakistan have never been worse, but Pakistan is building more nuclear bombs than any other country in the world, making it too big and too dangerous to ignore. Brian?
Andrea Mitchell from our D.C. newsroom tonight. Andrea, thanks.
The relationship between Pakistan and the United States has deteriorated over the last year. We've weathered a series of crises, from the Raymond Davis fiasco, where a CIA agent shot and killed 2 Pakistani innocent civilians in the back in the streets of Lahore, to the Abbottabad incident, to the Salalah raid by NATO that killed 24 innocent Pakistani soldiers and did not result in an apology.
It should also be noted that the much-trumpeted drawdown of the US troops in Iraq is just an election ruse. We have highlighted earlier that the United States has still got approximately 15,000 so-called contractors who remain in Iraq. These so-called contractors are a combination of mercenaries and CIA operatives who are responsible for all of the truck and car bombs that are still killing Iraqis in the thousands. They then blame insurgents or al-Qaeda as being the culprits.
So when the Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard spooks on about so-called safe havens for terrorists in Afghanistan as being justification for Australia's involvement there,
Julia Gillard needs to choose her words very carefully.
We will continue our efforts in Afghanistan to ensure that the country never again becomes a safe haven and training ground for international terrorism.
Julia Gillard is an active participant and thereby directly complicit in serious criminal wrongdoing by the leaders of the United States and the UK. Australian military forces are presently being killed and seriously wounded in Afghanistan on false pretences. A serious fraud is being perpetrated against the Australian people regarding justification for the involvement in the Afghanistan fiasco. We are being told by the political leadership of the US, the UK and Australia that we're at war. We have made it absolutely clear, here and elsewhere, there is no war. There never was. The people of Afghanistan and Iraq and their leaders have never once posed a threat to the continental United States or the United Kingdom or Australia.
I take personal responsibility for everything I say, of course. Absolutely. I also take responsibility for making decisions on war and peace. And I analyzed a thorough body of intelligence, good, solid, sound intelligence, that led me to come to the conclusion that it was necessary to remove Saddam Hussein from power. We gave the world a chance to do it. We had, remember, there's, again, I don't want to get repetitive here, but it's important to remind everybody that there was 12 resolutions that came out of the United Nations because others recognized the threat of Saddam Hussein. 12 times the United Nations Security Council passed resolutions in recognition of the threat that he posed. And the difference was that some were not willing to act on those resolutions. We were, along with a lot of other countries, because he posed a threat. Dr. Condoleezza Rice is an honest, fabulous person, and America is lucky to have her service. Period.
I ask you, in what sort of war can any rational politician claim with any degree of certainty that a war will reach a positive conclusion on a date of their choosing, which is some 2 to 3 years in the future? It is a total nonsense from start to finish, because there is no war and never was. Any loss of life now is a consequence of the people of Afghanistan who have lost family members and other atrocities at the hands of the Americans mainly, getting together in an insurgency to seek revenge and to rid their country of the foreign occupiers. Former United States Special Envoy for Afghanistan and Pakistan, Richard Holbrooke, stated on the operating table at George Washington University Hospital immediately prior to his death, quote, "You've got to end this war in Afghanistan," end of quote.
زندگی در سمجھو از مجبوری هستیم نه که از حواس باشیم از مجبوری هستیم که حالی همیشه خر بسته کنه گیر نمیکنه ما از مجبوری اینجا هستیم اگر تحتشم نمیمانه کس که ملک وطن ماست یعنی میشه ورم است چی دولت است که ما همینجا شیشتیم نمیمانه دیگه
یعنی فقط دمی امیدم ازی والی و مؤسسات و یسوسی هنمی تا شیشتیم که دمو یک جای بیده که ما از سمچا بخیزیم وقتی که همون شیری که خود بودیم گفتیم 12 ساله بودیم تو این وقت و وطن ما همگی برادری و برابری بودن و دست خالی به اینجا نرسیده بودن افغان، هزاره، تاجیک، ازبک تماما یک برادر بودیم بسیار موفق و موافقت و با برادری و گویا ما گذران کردیم ما سیشم کرد همین مردمی افغانستان چیزی که بودن باسوستن این منطقه بامیان این ولایت بامیان ما سیر آسیر شدیم و آرام شدیم که در سال 53 دو وقت شوروی بروز کرد
او تو آمد یک روز تیارا که زد مردم بسیار از بین بود طرف زد از بالتونی شیب میکرد بامر شروع میکرد
اینا میدان هوایی نبوده مردم تیاره رو ندیده وقتی که تیارای روسا میمد در اینجا بمبارد میکرد زنها و بچه ها یک به ناگهان فرشان حال به طرف کو به طرف دیوار به طرف قشلاق به طرف جای هر طرفی که بوده اینا همونطور وحشت زده فرار میکرده
دیگه مقصد تیارا رفت و دیگه مجاهدین کم کم پیش آمد و دیگه نمی سنگرایش بوده اینجا دریای بود و طرفش سرش اینجا مکمل این آبادات دیسازو بود دیگه اینجا زدن بسیار زیاد بود دیگه اینجا ما بودیم دیگه اینجا خیلی زدن کردیم قدش زخمی شدیم دستا بسیار زخم است هیچ کار نمیتونیم مالی
مجاهد قهرمان افغانستان ما چیزی بودن که گویا بلی شوری را بلی جنیفه در خاک مالید در تمام شوری مکوا ظلمونا مکوا ظلمونا او پغارو پغریب و پمظلوما پغریب و پمظلوما پمکا افغانا گورکر نسیمانا پمکا خارجی ناگشای داخل بجهنم
حکومت داره که خدا همه کبار دیگر راضی شده بیتی از این خاری و زاریم راضی آدم شایدی بر کنه یا اگر غذای آباد بیافه یا کالای آباد بیافه یا صرفی آباد بیافه یا دا سچه بخوره یا بدره قوم خیش خینا سچه بیگرده طرف ظرفی آباد بیافه یا کبار امیدی بلند داری که میاره دیگه خدا سرفراز کنه کمی باشم صاحب یک دی خانه مگر نگرده که بگه مزی مام اما آتش پا غلطیده شده این مام پا غلطیده شده در پناه مزی مورد خدا اول خدا دیم می نگاه کنه نان بیتیه غذا بیاره کالا بیاره دمو اما امیده که داری باز توکل با خدا دیگه کتا کشیدیم ما معلم میشه.
همینطور قصد داریم که دوسته دیگه هم از ما مردم خلق شد، مردم نامگیره شد، بسیار خوب است.
ما که کران چه ما که زن بگیرم وقتی برای ما میگیرم شنه نمیکنم.
همدوش است، کار میکنه، امید خدا است که ما از شما انشاءالله در زودترین وقت برشیم و به شکل یک انسان خانه داشته باشیم.
در بساط خاطر یادم جز غمی دنیا نمیماند، جز غمی دنیا نمیماند.